That's why they hate Trump?
I don't, there's literally no question about it. I watched it happen. I mean, I knew Bill Kristol well. I worked for him for 5 years in the 90s. And I remember very, very well. It was the winter of 2016. Kristol didn't like Trump, but he didn't hate him. And he was writing about it all the time. And maybe there's a way we can work with Trump. Looks like he's going to be the nominee. And, you know, we can do this. And I don't mean to single out Bill Kristol. He's obviously sort of sad old guy at this point, but he kind of represents the mindset of a lot of people in Washington, particularly in the foreign policy world. So that's exactly where he was until the night of the Republican primary debate in, I think it was Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes.
It was in Greenville, South Carolina in 2016. And that's the debate at which Trump said, you know, said to Jeb, like, your brother lied and got us into war. And that war was a disaster, the Iraq War. Well, I'll never forget it as long as I live. And all the morons on TV, political reporting is the easiest kind of reporting, so it tends to draw lower IQ people and much more conventional people. And they're all like, "Oh, that's the end of his campaign." South Carolina has the highest percentage of military veterans of any state, and they're going to hate that. And I remember thinking, I think they'll probably love it. Like the guys whose lives were destroyed by these wars, who didn't see, you know, went on 3 or 4 tours, didn't see their kids get divorced or got injured or killed. Like they know how pointless that was better than anyone else in the country. And of course, that was true. And he won the South Carolina primary. But the takeaway in Washington was this guy must be stopped. That's the red line. And I didn't realize it at the time. I had no idea. I had a lot of theories about what the red line was, but I didn't realize that it was criticizing neocon foreign policy, because I thought that foreign policy was completely discredited. I mean, I thought people like Liz Cheney or, you know, all the Paul Wolfowitz, all the people who pushed that nonsense, Victoria Nuland, I thought that they were like in exile. I never imagined they would be back to run everything, because their track record was just an unbroken chain of disasters that hurt our country. And I'm just way too literal, I guess. But it turned out not only were they back, they were never not back. They were always in charge. And Trump, that's the thing he did. And they have never forgiven him for it. When he questioned NATO, why do we have NATO? And I thought, man, why do we have NATO? I still don't know the answer. Of course, to cause untold mischief around the world, to degrade our power, drain our treasury, kill people. I mean, NATO is indefensible as currently constituted. But when he said that, then they were like, I thought they might assassinate him for saying that. You can't criticize NATO. What if the Soviets invade Germany? It's like so demented.
With cheap gas.
What if they...
with cheap gas and pretty women. Woo!
I never forget after that debate, I was watching the talking heads afterwards, and Charles Krauthammer said that Trump's campaign is over because you can't go against the Iraq war. And I was like, are you nuts? People are cheering in the streets for him saying that. And of course, I mean, that's the kind of exactly what you said. I couldn't believe Charles. I'm like, wow, I knew he was a shill for the establishment, but that was like over the top. That was amazing. So now, you took
but they all believed it. That was the thing. It was so bad.
Yeah.
David Frumm still goes on Bill Maher and gets quoted by Sam Harris. David Frumm.
So let me.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yes. So let me, Bill
he
Maher.
Gets quoted Sam Harris?
Yeah, we played a clip of it.
Bill Maher just the other night.
Trump violated norms, Tucker.
There's international norms, Tucker. You can't violate the norms.
The original sin, where you talk about law enforcement problems and Republican attitudes toward law enforcement, particularly of the FBI on this stuff, the original sin from both media and the intelligence agencies and federal law enforcement is the Russiagate stuff. And the reason that so many in the party, and I'm here as the translator because I'm not one of them, but so many in the party accept so much of Donald Trump's behavior is because the Russia stuff was a lie and nobody paid for it.
No, it wasn't.
Well, it wasn't all a lie.
Yes, it's not all a lie. You guys have been are you guys going to do Steele dossier on me?
No.
Well,
some of the Steele dossier was true. Okay, this...
Like, we did Mueller report for 3 years.
Yes, and Mueller never said he was innocent.
And the whole time, I'm like, guys, I don't think he's a Russian plant. And everyone on CNN set is looking at me like I'm crazy. And at the end, we get to not much there, which was the case.
There was quite a bit there.
There was a lot there.
There was a lot there.
Yeah.
There was collusion we never had before. It was unprecedented. that a president would do that. He just did it in public because he's insane.
You do know.
No,
I think one of the advantages
of being insane.
And most of it, probably none of it was illegal, right? So, I mean, this was always David Frumm's line. Everything he's doing is in plain view, and it's not illegal. He's just violating every political norm we have.
Except there were things that were illegal, like using the FISA court to spy on American citizens in ways that they should not have done.
That
was legal,
right.
but that wasn't him.
That's right.
And the fact that the Hillary Clinton campaign was partially responsible for funding this dossier, which partially came from, wait for it, Russian disinformation. It was, and then it started this cycle of media circle jerk, and then we had 4 years of that.
Given his contacts with Russia.
So I'm
it's
different.
not exactly everything they said it was, but it's not nothing.
The standard of evidence used for the Russia thing for 3-4 years versus the standard of evidence used now in media for Biden and Hunter Biden's shenanigans and fairly obvious influence peddling is worlds apart. Worlds apart. And I would just like, and voters deserve fairness in how these two people are treated. They do not get it, and they sometimes don't get it from law enforcement.
Okay,
and that's bad.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot to untangle here, but I'll completely grant you that if Hunter Biden had been Don Jr., if it had been Don Jr.'s laptop, everything would change in terms of the reception, and that seems like an unfair asymmetry. But the background reality is, we have never had a person like Trump in our politics, certainly not in the lifetime of anyone in this studio. And he has shattered every norm. I mean, we didn't even know how much we relied on norms. I mean, we're a nation of laws, but more important than the laws are the norms, like committing to a peaceful transfer of power when you're a president. I mean, that was the most shocking violation of normal democratic principles. I think in our history.
I agree with you about the norms. And here's the problem. A bunch of people, including in the justice system, looked at Trump and said, he's going to bust all the norms. And you know what we need to do? Bust all the norms to stop him. And that is a very unhealthy decision.
It's unhealthy, I'll grant you that.
But got to stop. Thank you. Welcome back. Time for new rules.
Krauthammer on Fox, and here's what he said about it.
But I think he might have made a major stumble in terms of substance when he accused George W. not just of making a mistake, but of deliberately lying us into the war. Now, that is a charge that you have to go to the more radical Democrats to hear. You don't hear it among Republicans.
You don't even hear it among mainstream Democrats. You don't hear that. When he says you got to go to the mixture, I can't even think of one who says it. I can't even think of one. Here we go.
You don't hear it about from reasonable Democrats. And then I thought that was sort of going to a place where he may regret, particularly since George W. is really popular in South Carolina.
So there he goes up. Now this is the thing that's going to ruin Trump. He could say anything. He could call John McCain, their nominee from 2008. He can crap all over his war record. Say he's not a war hero because he got captured. He could do that. He can diss the troops, a war hero troop who was captured, a prisoner, a POW. He could diss him, doesn't care. He can say whatever he wants about women. He can say whatever he wants about Fox News. He can say whatever he wants about Muslim. He can say whatever he wants about anybody and everything. Except he can't say this about 9/11. He can't say this about the Iraq War. We'll see. I think it's not going to touch him at all. Charles Krauthammer thinks this is the thing that's going to kill him. He goes on and says this.
But there was one exchange where Trump was blaming 9/11 on George W. And Jeb answered. It was a good answer, but not strong enough. And I think it was Rubio who then stepped in and said, no, that was the fault of President Clinton, who had a chance to kill Osama bin Laden and didn't.
See, that's the Republican narrative. It's not George Bush's fault that 9/11 happened. It was the guy who was president before him. And anything that happened after 9/11 is Barack Obama's fault. Nothing is George Bush's. Nothing is the president's fault when it happens. No. So that's the story that Trump has just pierced right? And and we all know it, but that's the BS inside the Beltway bubble, media bubble. That's the story that they all tell themselves, but I don't think a lot of people really believe that. Maybe some Republicans believe that for reals, but that's one of those lies they tell themselves. So, what do you think?
Well, you have to remember how little they've been exposed to that idea, the diehard Republicans.
Right.
That, you know, so it's not surprising that they freak out when they hear that kind of reaction. But that entire crowd was all like, you know, capos and lieutenants of the Republican Party. That debate.
Yeah.
It's not like that's the Republican
Correct.
rabble. And what I'm seeing here is the bubble, the durability of this Republican bubble, and maybe it's being bruised and deflated finally from the inside because Democrats haven't been able to pop it. They haven't even tried.
That's what I'm saying. That's the significance of this. It's happening at their own debate, in their own state, by their own leading candidate.
Yes. And
this is their event. They're producing. This isn't happening. Some wacko lefties doing this.
Remember, George Bush was very unpopular in 2007. I mean, public opinion turned against him because of Iraq. Right,
the most unpopular president, I think, when he left office.
2005, and that was a substantial amount of Republicans who come with some reasonableness. There are a lot of them who, and they turned against it. They saw the quagmire in Iraq, and they were getting their news from mainstream media sources, which is even with the fetish for objectivity. Even then, on mainstream
neutrality,
news,
not objectivity. They're neutral. They're not.
Sorry,
objective.
yes, thank you for false equivalence and all the but bought and paid for and owned and operated by the corporations. They still didn't keep George Bush in high marks with Republicans. You know, we've done a story about how his approval ratings at the end of his term in 2008 and then now in 2016.
That they're recovering.
It's recovered. It's gotten better. People have this memory lapse, and it's all kind of gone away. He paints pretty nice pictures, so you gotta like the guy.
They forgot all about him during the GOP presidential election. Like, he was nowhere at the convention. They didn't want him anywhere. They didn't want to mention his name.
Right.
But right now they have to mention his name.
Well, you know.